Hi everybody. Trying coping with triggers, and first of all recognizing your triggers. Now sometimes when you've got mental health problems, there may be certain situations that may cause a bit of a problem which create a trigger. Triggers in themselves are like repeat that, like certain triggers will keep happening, like certain things, like a pattern, form a pattern around it. But the triggers in itself, how they can make you feel within yourself, your feelings, your emotions, feeling of stress, anxiety, feeling overwhelmed because of it as well. And sometimes as well, like the fear behind it, the fear based around it, and how you cope with those triggers a lot of the time could be full throttle in, like the added on top, the anger, the hatred, the resentment around it. That's natural. That's a natural response there of what is going on in that moment of that trigger, what's going on, that difficult situation there. But it's all about trying to cope with those triggers easier, to alleviate those symptoms that you may get, which is based around those triggers. First of all, though, is recognizing those triggers, because sometimes you may not know straight away what those triggers are. But like I said, normally they would form into a pattern. Sometimes it may come from the past, a memory that's just popped up in your head and caused that, could be a certain thing that is causing those triggers there, but how you respond to it as well. And the mind, like, will always go to where it's familiar with. So each and every time, how you cope with those triggers, the mind will go to where it's familiar with, and that will be the automatic response to it. So dealing with it with the added on top, you will naturally, every time those triggers come along, that's how you would feel, like, and how it would affect your feelings and your emotions as well. Feeling overwhelmed as well around it, the anxiety. Now triggers could be anything from, it depends on the individual, what your situation is, and so forth. It could be anything that you may do that is in your day-to-day living that you may find difficult doing. That could be your trigger. It could be something. Some people may have difficulty using public transport, like say getting on a bus or going into a shop, causing that fear, that anxiety there, that stress, or standing in a queue. It could be anything. It could be a smell, a certain odour. It could that's created a memory from the past that was not so good. A colour. It could be like you could be going somewhere. It could be places. Like places. It could be people. It could be anything like that. So it depends on the individual and their circumstances, but it's learning to recognize those triggers, recognizing how it's making you feel, those certain situations, how it's making you feel with your feelings and emotions, learning to approach it in a better way and approach your feelings and emotions in a better way without the added laid on top, being non-judgmental rather than the judgment there, and the anger and the hatred and the resentment, because all that creates more of a problem around that situation as well. So it's practicing the mindfulness, being mindful when that situation is going, a difficult situation there. Practice some mindfulness towards your feelings and emotions in a better way, more kinder way. Is even as well talking about how you're feeling, talking about those triggers and how it affects you. that in itself, talking, will give you the headspace in your mind to be able to cope a little bit better with that situation and alleviate those symptoms as well. So talking about it. Another thing as well is maybe pulling away from that situation and just focusing on something else. Go for a walk. Go for a walk. Anything that you wish to do, a bit of exercise, just focus away from that situation to give yourself, again, some headspace, as they say. Clear the mind, clear your head, so you can think a bit better and being able to cope a bit better with that situation. So then go back to that situation. So you're not exactly avoiding it. You go back to that situation and cope with it in a better way with your feelings and your emotions, because some things may be out of our control, like the triggers. They may just pop up or at a certain time, and it's knowing how to cope with them in a better way towards yourself, because sometimes it creates a personal effect towards yourself, those triggers, with your feelings and your emotions, and it's learning how to cope with it, and to learn better to cope with those difficult situations there. It's all about creating a new habit of coping with it in a better way, coping with those triggers in a better way, because at the end of the day, whatever those triggers are, they have to be dealt with, the root cause. You have to deal with the root cause to help with it and to help you cope with it in a better way. Coping with it, getting to that root cause there. Just say for an example, you had trouble on public transport. You had trouble getting public transport, a bus. So you take those small steps. You take small steps at your own pace and maybe face that fear and just get on that bus. You have to see that there's nothing untoward that's going to happen, because a lot of the time, like I said, it's the fear. And maybe practice some, while you're on the bus, some breathing exercises to alleviate that and reduce that anxiety and that stress that's built around it, and to focus towards yourself whilst you're doing it and your feelings and emotions, to make you feel a bit more calmer and less overwhelmed around it all. So it's using those techniques while you're in those situations as well. It's the same with, if you had trouble going into a shop in a queue, you can do that the same as well. Practice that mindfulness there. Focusing towards something else as well, like I said, maybe to clear your head, to go back to that difficult situation. So this video really was all about trying to cope with those triggers that many people may have that are suffering with mental health problems, whether it's from the past, remembering that a memory in itself as well is not repeating itself. It's not happening all over again. It may feel like that. Recognizing that it's just a story. It's the story. So it's learning to overcome those triggers of a memory or certain things that you may have that affect your day-to-day living, other triggers as well. It could be, like another trigger could be having difficulty going out of your home as well. So it's all about taking those small steps, and maybe just sometimes you have to push yourself, but the more you do that, the more you do these things in practicing, you will create a new habit of learning how to cope with those triggers, those difficult situations that occur around it, and alleviate those symptoms that create around those those triggers. So it's learning to cope with it in a better way, learning to cope with those triggers in a better way as well. So I'm going to end the video there. I hope you like this video. I hope it would be of some help to someone or some people. Please share. If you're watching on Facebook, please share, because it's very important. Mental health is very important, and having to look after it can be a struggle sometimes if you're suffering with those mental health problems. But remember, there's always hope with mental health. You can get there. You can alleviate those symptoms and live a better life and a more enjoyable life. You know, it's all about what you do that for the better, that will help with it, is what will help with it and help you start to enjoy your life again. So it is possible to do. So please share, and see you in the next video.